Gentlemen, to the Public Safety and Justice Affairs Committee. I see Mr. Miller is here again. We welcome him. Bright sunny Tribe Day. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Baker. Here. Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Brady. Here. Ms. Conwell.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Ms. Laurie Albright.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Laurie Albright. I live in University Heights, and I'm involved with the Coalition to Stop the Inhumanity at the Cuyahoga County Jail. And I'm here just to urge you to continue your efforts to improve those conditions in a manner of urgency. There have been so many studies and so many things that have occurred that provide a roadmap, but it would require a lot of people working together. Just as an example, in the bail reform report that was released in March of 2018, it talks about, I'll read you 3 sentences from that. In Summit County, the pretrial services staff report that Summit County's decision to invest in pretrial services has saved money while improving pretrial processes and reducing unnecessary pretrial detention. With the $783,000 investment in 2016, they reduced their average length of stay for felony pretrial inmates from 60 days down to 21, resulting in a net savings to the county of $7.3 million. With a contrast of daily cost of $135 to detain inmates, Summit County's pretrial supervision costs range from a low of $1.32 per day to $5.05 today for maximum supervision. This is the kind of thing that can happen if we can bring our county officials together and what we desperately want to see. Thank you for your attention and your urgency to this life-important matter.
Thank you, Ms. Albright. And I can tell you, at least from this committee, that we're working diligently to get to the goal in which you and your folks want us to get to. So sometimes it's slow, unfortunately, but we're moving as fast as we can. I want to take 2019-0086 first, as I think we're going to have a little longer discussion on Euclid. So if we, Janine.
Resolution number 2019-0086, authorizing an amendment to a master contract with various providers for the Shelter Care Spectrum of Services program.
Thank you. And ma'am, before you speak, I failed. In your packet, we have the minutes of the March 5th meeting. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Sarah Baker from Juvenile Court. The court is requesting an amendment to our current shelter care master contract. We're requesting $1,577,851 for this amendment, and it is just for our second year of dollars for this project. That total amount is made up of 14.3% of HHS funding and 85.7% of our Title IV-E funds, our special revenue funds. The shelter care program is considered an alternative detention. It's a community-based option that we can utilize. We use this for youth that are awaiting future court proceedings, or maybe youth that are waiting to go into a residential placement. This keeps kids out of our detention center and helps keeps those numbers low in our facility as well. While at various shelter care facilities, they're getting the general care, any housing needs, medical, dental, education is all on campus, so they're getting all of those needs met. The vendors are responsible for 24/7 transportation, whether there's emergency, whether the kids need medical appointments during the day or to come to and from court appointments. We actually issued an RFP for this contract back in 2017. Carrington is our one provider, and they provide for both male and female youth, and they have 2 separate wards, so the genders are separated for the youth that attend there. They can take up to 35 of our kids at one time. The per diem for that facility is $159.58. Cleveland Christian Home accepts our male youth only, and they'll only take about 10 boys at a time. And the per diem there is $161 a day. Beach Brook is kind of new, and it's new to this contract. We have not used them before, and what they're providing is their therapeutic foster homes. So the kids are then able to attend schools off-site, so the foster parents can take the kids to their home school, so they're not removed from their home school while they're in this facility, or this home, rather. They also can participate in various activities while in these homes. The per diem rate there is $172.42 a day. During calendar year 2018, we sent 400 kids to a shelter care facility, and of those youth, 256 went to Carrington. They get the bulk of our kids. 141 youth went to Cleveland Christian Home, and 3 went to Beach Brook. And of those youth, 385 were terminated, and 311, which is about 81%, were successfully discharged. Most kids stay in these facilities for an average length of stay of about 18 days usually, as they're waiting for their various court hearings.
Okay. Questions?
No.
Through the chair, to Sarah, Ms. Baker, you mentioned for the 35 at Carrington, the 10 at Christian Home, but Beach Brook you didn't mention.
Since they're offering just like their therapeutic foster homes, it's just they never really gave us a set amount that they could accommodate it, and we haven't used it very frequently. As you can see from 18, we only used 3 beds. As long as they have a bed available, they've been accommodating to us, and we have not had them turn us down for any kids that we've tried to send.
And in the RFP, these are the only 3 organizations that we have?
Yes, and we actually plan to issue another RFP later this year for the next contract term.
Okay, and that contract term, will it be for 2 years or 3?
2.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Baker, why is the therapeutic foster care more expensive on the per diem than the other 2? I would have thought it would be the other way around.
With the therapeutic foster homes, the kids are able to start some case management services. So those case managers can begin to look at whether or not they may need anger management, they may need substance abuse treatment, and start to kind of link those kids up to where they may need to go. So that component does cost a little bit extra than, say, just sending the kid to Carrington or Cleveland Christian Home.
Okay.
Anything for, yes, ma'am.
To follow up on that, through the chair to Ms. Baker, the start of the case management services, out of those 3 students that were in there, were they one of the successful ones?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything further? And I would assume we want to move this forward, looking at the dates involved.
Yes, please.
So if everyone's comfortable with Resolution 2019-0086 going to the full council under second reading suspension, I'll accept the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Against? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And tell Karen we miss her.
I will do that.
I'm not certain she's ever missed a meeting.
I don't think so.
Well, now she's in that column. Trevor? Janine, 2019-0085.
Resolution number 2019-0085, authorizing an amendment to a revenue-generating underlying agreement with City of Euclid for operation of jail services for County Euclid prisoners.
Thank you, Janine. Brandy, let's start with Mrs. Carney and Donna, Cleo. And before we start, I've had discussions with the executives, leadership of council, and all the pertinent members, including our friends out in Euclid. This was initially a 5-year. We're going to alter that to a 1-year, look at the numbers, talk about the numbers obviously today, see where those lead us, and to make sure that Euclid isn't left holding the bag in any shape or form. We'll give them reasonable notice if indeed we are not going to go forward. My thought process is that now that the question mark of building a jail has been removed, we have to build a new jail. I don't know the timeline on that. I would suspect it would fall into a timeline reasonable with the Justice Center. either rebuild or new build, those to be determined. But I would imagine that it wouldn't be more than 5 years down the road, which in the life of a construction project that size, if it were that size, would be a reasonable timeline. If it was a standalone jail, I think it would be less time. So I think we have to coordinate our thoughts going forward that we're looking at a new facility, and does this program that was started under the previous administration and administered initially under the previous administration, was it reasonable to do what we're doing now? And I think we're going to get some answers to that. We're going to have to determine if that project is something we're going to keep pursuing or we're just going to have to back off of. But again, none of that has been determined yet. So, Donna, I gave you some questions. I didn't necessarily think you would answer them in writing. I thought we would just go over them here with you. I didn't want any surprises, because I think rather than looking back on how we got here, which isn't the greatest of stories, but now that we are here, that we should take the information, as much information that we can get on all of our jail facilities, and try and figure out what's best for Cuyahoga County going forward. So that's my thoughts to the committee. Donna, you have the questions in front of you. So Donna, let's just, for the consumption of the public that might be interested, let's just start with the first question. You can read that and you can just riff off of that. You don't have to follow verbatim what you wrote. Just give us an idea where we're going.
The first question, good afternoon, Donna, Cleo, Sheriff's Fiscal Manager. Why was this lease introduced 5 days prior to its expiration? It's, again, this one was, I was not in charge of jail contracts at all. This fell under jail administration's purview. I was asked a question one day by Trevor about the Euclid contract, so when I went to research it, that's when I discovered the upcoming expiration, so we immediately jumped on it and worked with the law department, got it non-base, and moved it as quick as we could. Yeah, it was in, did I say, I'm sorry, in February 12th is when I researched it. I realized what was going on. I sent Euclid an email. I sent our law department an email, and that's when we started working on it in February, and it's taken over a month to get it to this point now.
Now, do we have we looked back on the numbers from the past, or was that just last year?
Now, when you say the
The
numbers.
numbers that you gave us, as far as last year, have you?
Oh, the ADP and things like that, yeah, that was for 2018,
Right, okay.
yes.
Okay.
Oh, should I just keep reading
Yes,
questions?
sure,
Oh,
go ahead.
okay,
If you're comfortable with that, I can read
Okay,
them if you want, but,
okay,
yes, ma'am.
sure.
Only curious, if Trevor hadn't given you a heads up that the contract was ending in February or was coming to an end, would we have known? I mean, what is the procedure for knowing when these contracts are coming up?
Normally, contracts that I'm in charge of, I have a spreadsheet, and I have the vendor, the contract execution date, the cost, the expiration date, and that's how I track all my contracts, so this doesn't happen. Again, under the previous administration, I was removed from all jail contracts. That was approved by Chief Taylor, so that fell under jail administration. Then with the change now and the resignations and things like that, this, like I said, I just happened upon this. My assumption was nobody was watching it then.
If I may follow up, so has this been remedied? We shouldn't have another contract under your scope or anyone else's scope?
What
regarding
I'm
the jail?
doing is, because there are some other contracts out there, but not getting ready to expire, so what I'm doing is I'm going to work with the jail administration to see who's going to be in charge of what, so this doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Please provide a historical overview of our relationship with the city of Euclid to run the Euclid Jail. So historically, back in 2014, when this was being negotiated, it was my understanding that the Euclid Jail we were taking it over mainly to get rid of prisoner boarding care. over the years, I'm sure you know the cost of prisoner boarding care. I mean, it was very high at one point. It was decreasing over the years. In 14, it was 1.2 million. Then Euclid came on board, and then it dropped down in 15 to 154,000. What we wanted to do was to take those that we were housing in other jails and put them in Euclid. But my understanding is that's still not happening. We're not getting the Euclid beds filled. I can't answer why. I don't know the answer to that, but that was the initial thought.
Right. We were, for those that weren't here, we found out about this after the fact. So it was kind of thrust upon us.
Correct. That was under Roberto, actually.
Yeah, it was a previous administration, Roberto Colon. This was his deal, and we're now dealing with it. So.
And then the second part, how much was spent on capital build out of the Euclid facility? The cost that I know of was the sheriff's department paid for $93,000 worth of IT costs. Any other capital costs, I'm not aware of. I know Brandy has spoken with Department of Public Works, if you want to.
Sure. So Brandy Carney, Chief of Public Safety and Justice for the county. The Euclid contracts, the 5-year contract that just ended on the 31st, included capital cost by the city of Euclid totaling $600,000. To date, we have received $480,000, so we are expecting a final payment of $120,000 for that. And the cost have not, per Public Works to date, our cost for capital has been $526,354. So those were the only capital costs outside of the separate general fund budget that was included by the sheriff's office.
Okay, so the Euclid payback ends in 2019.
That's correct.
Okay. Everybody okay with this? Okay.
93,000. Oh, 93,000. I'm sorry. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. When did the city of Euclid sign the 5-year amendment? They signed it on 3/4 at their council meeting. I received it on 3/5, but then on previous to that, on an email I sent on 2/20, I had asked for a bunch of other documents. I didn't receive those other documents until 3/11.
Okay. So for those that are here in the room and watching via stream, what we're basically doing is showing you how we get information, which is not the best, as Councilwoman Nan Baker was saying. This was kind of a surprise to us because we just didn't deal with it because of those that were running it. The siloed world of the jails was still in existence back then. So unfortunately, we're finding out after you found out.
What are the county's termination options? From what I'm reading in the contract, the termination option is a 24-month. We have to give them 24 months notice that we are going to terminate the contract. However, I'm not sure. My understanding is that's if we try to do it somewhere during the contract term. Now that the contract term is over, I don't know. That was something the law department, I think, answered for you.
Sure, and we can defer. Jonathan McGorry from the law department, if that's okay, worked on this and is aware of this question coming, if that's okay, sir.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan McGorry at the Department of Law. So the options in the agreement, yeah, as Donna stated, is correct. There's a 24-month notice period so that we have time to work collaboratively to work on a transition. Now, since we're at the end of our first 5 years, we have a number of options. We can either sign the 5-year extension and then give them 24 months notice if we decide during those 5 years to end. But since we're contemplating today only a 1-year extension, then that is kind of a moot point. It would functionally be only 12 months, 11 months, 10 months, depending on when we gave them the notice, because the agreement does say if the contract terminates within those 24 months, well, then that's when it terminates. We're not going to extend this transition period out any longer. So in this process, we're amending the agreement, so we have the ability in this process to use a shorter extension period, i.e. 1 year. We could also stipulate in this amendment process, if Euclid was amenable to it, to have to work out what that notice period would be if we're only going for a 1-year extension, maybe we say we'll give you a few months notice, or we just say we'll work in good faith to work on a transition period, something like that. So it's open to debate, or not debate, but it's open to collaboration with Euclid.
So the extension of a year really negates the 24-month notice. And that
Correct.
that even as substituted, we would still have to probably amend that before we pass it, with discussions with Euclid would be the wise thing to do?
If we want to be 100% clear on it, correct. At this point, if we gave them notice with a 1-year, if we have a 1-year extension and we gave them notice in month 1 or 2, we would have 11 or 10 months to work on that transition. And that's how it would work if we amended it as it's written today.
Okay. Law Director Sweeney. The Euclid Law Director. What would make you most comfortable?
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for having us today. I did have the 24 months tabbed in my, on my contract. I did want to discuss that with Council if the opportunity arose. I did talk to the chief. He thinks we can probably make arrangements either with Sheriff Pinckney to house our prisoners downtown or possibly with Lake County. I would think 90 days would be a reasonable out to let us know if you're not going to renew it after the 1 year.
Okay, well, let's do this, because I think we have a relationship enough with you, and Ms. Simon represents your district, and I know she's been in contact with the mayor. I think we can, without having to memorialize it, we can certainly go forward with an understanding that we're going to make you as comfortable as possible under the terms of the 1 year. With, I would imagine, the understanding right now, we're going to need this year to gather all the numbers that we're looking for. So why don't we leave it, as long as you're comfortable with that? Nothing's going to happen without going through this committee or this council. So I can assure you that you would have your 90 days or more.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay?
Chairman.
If you're comfortable, if that's what you're comfortable with.
Yes, I think so.
I'm sure you'll have plenty more than that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Jonathan McGorry again. I can ensure that that's in the amendment. Typically, when we amend the agreement with the nuts and bolts, we have some wiggle room to work on changes like that. So Donna and I have been working on the draft amendment, and I can put that 90 days in the
Okay, I
agreement.
have the amendment in front of me. Is that part of it, or are we going to be altering the amendment?
We would be altering not the proposed substitute resolution,
Okay.
but the actual document that Euclid signs
Okay.
and the county signs.
So we're good. Okay. Okay, Donna.
What is the current capacity of the Euclid Jail? My understanding is it's 83 beds currently.
And Bedford Heights is 100.
200, I thought?
Is it
199 or 200, something like
That was
that.
189,
It's approximately
176.
176? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. How many inmates are currently housed at the Euclid Jail as of 3/27? So what I did is I just sent an email to the sergeant out there, and I just put the January ADP for Euclid was 26, and that included 17 federal, 2 Euclid, and 7 county. The February ADP was 32. That included 17 feds, 2 Euclid, and 13 county. And the March ADP was 39, and that was 15 federal, 3 Euclid, and 21 county.
Okay, and I think it's important to note that that was after all the problems were discovered and things became pretty obvious that the jail was, as we always knew, overcrowded. Almost 2,400 downtown, with Euclid having substantial population, I remember, at that point in time, but it was all female. And Bedford up and running at that point. So it's important to keep that in mind, that all of these numbers started going down after the fact. So we were at 24 downtown, half Euclid, I thought, and in Bedford starting to gear up.
If I could, Chairman, that is true. After the Marshals report came out, we did move the Marshal prisoners from the downtown location out to the city of Euclid. Even at that time, I recall the numbers for the Marshall prisoners were in the 40s somewhere. And as you can see, that number has dropped. I did speak with them today, and they said due to the site itself, the Euclid site, they have some restrictions on some of the people that they're able to put out there. And so that number has since lowered a little bit. And so again, I think we're at 17 federal prisoners out there today.
And to lay away the biggest myth, the federal per diem is,
It is $81 a day currently
and we
with the
charge
Marshals.
everyone else?
The city of Cleveland and others are $99 a day per inmate.
Okay, so that's, there's something needs to be done there.
There is, if I could, sir, I did speak with Marshall Elliott this morning, because this was a previous contract that was done with the previous administration. He did say two things. One is that they don't determine the rate that they're able to pay. That's done out of Washington, but he said he would be open to having that discussion again, obviously. And he also said he would be open to having the discussion about possibly moving their inmates back downtown, but the group that had came in previously would again have to come into the downtown location.
And the 99 per diem, we kind of debated back and forth, I recall, especially when Euclid was coming on board and we were discussing Cleveland. We got to $99, which in the end today is not $99. It's going to be higher. So in essence, no matter where we're at right now, we're losing money on the per diem on all prisoners that are from outside.
Correct.
And we're going to have to adjust that. But by contract, Cleveland can only get bumped 2% a year. Has the 2% been sent to Cleveland? Have they been notified?
Not that I'm aware of, no, because I thought that was after 1 year. That's after the first full year. The first full year after we started billing. That's what I was originally told, and we started billing last August. So that's what my understanding was. We don't bump until the first full year, not during the transition period.
Okay.
But the billing began in August, so that's when the 2%. I may be incorrect, but that's what the previous jail administration had told me.
Okay, well, anything that they told you, we need to really look at. So if the legal department would look at that, because we don't want to go outside the four corners of the document itself. But the understanding, I think the council needs to understand, is that these numbers were, I don't know where we got 99, but we're not there. We have a new deal with Metro, hopefully in the next 30, 60 days. That's going to bump the number substantially. And then we're talking about outside meals coming in by a professional company. That's going to bump the numbers up. So I think all of our partners need to be aware that the 99 is probably not going to hold. Cleveland was smart with the 2% for now. You know, we're going to have to go that 2% to recoup some money. But in essence, this whole thing has been for loss.
It has been, and if I could make a clarification, the 99, and I explained this to the previous administration that was handling these contracts.
And us.
And the 99 came from the jail, the cost of the inmates at the county jail. So when you take those costs and you spread them over 2,400 inmates, you're going to get $85 to $90 per inmate per day. But I also explained to the people handling the Cleveland contract, we're opening up a whole nother jail. 99 should not be the cost.
Right.
It should be much higher, but that didn't happen. I was removed from that, but that's where they got the 99 from my cost per inmate per day downtown.
Okay.
But if you, like I said, you keep putting more inmates in there, well, the cost is going to drop.
And again, we are where we're at. The 99 was the number. We're just going to have to live with that going forward. We understand the previous administration at the jail was what it was, and now we have a new day there. I just think the more sunshine we put on this, the better for all of our partners, because down the road, and as I expressed to our friends in Euclid, that now that we've been notified, we have a jail that's 20 years past its life expectancy. We are now having to build a new jail. There was a question mark whether or not we're going to do that with a justice center, rebuild, redo, whatever. That's gone. So we're going to have to focus on that. So I think focusing on that and providing services from that facility is probably the way to go. I think we need to hire somebody that knows what they're talking about to tell us if satellite jails is the way to go. Unfortunately, we had people doing this that didn't, and I think we're seeing the proof of that. So what we want to do is not make money. I kept hearing that, how the council or the administration wanted to make money. This is a money maker. No, we want to break even. This is no different than when we take care of someone's sewers. We'll bill them back for what our costs are, and those will be lower than what if you did it yourself, because we have the expertise, the manpower, and the machinery to do it, and we're saving you that. So that should be our focus, to get a number that's reasonable to provide these services. And ultimately, it's the administration and elected officials of those communities, whether or not they want to be part of that. But we have to put that plan together and make it make sense as we incrementally move forward, much like the 911 dispatch. That was very difficult to do in about 6 years, 5 years of hard work on Mrs. Carney's part to do it, but we made the numbers make sense, and we got there. So going forward, I think we should, the 99, I just wanted to put that out there, where we're going, and I know you've told me some numbers where we might be, but we don't know until we get this all together. So it's going to be higher, substantially higher for our community to be dealing with us.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned a couple times about this decision being made that we're going to build a new facility, which I thought we'd been there for quite a while. Could you enlighten me as to when and how this decision was made? You seem to be implying that something had relatively recently changed.
When in the meetings with the Justice Center redo, rebuild, jail redo, rebuild, all the information that we've gotten back so far is that jails basically have a 20 to 25 year lifespan. This is 20 year. What we have is 20 years past the lifespan and ability to provide jail services. It's outdated. We can't go forward with an outdated building. There was a question mark on whether we could redo it, keep it the same place, redo it. You can't. Jails are different today, and if we built one today, in 15 or 20 years, we'd be probably building another one because they're going to be different as we go. They're very expensive, and they have to be redone. And as we have found with some of the lawsuits and some of the problems that we've had, is the building itself has been a problem.
So you're saying it has to be a new building at a new location,
I don't know about location.
but a new building?
We have been told that it's 20 years past its life expectancy.
Okay.
Chair, may I ask a
Yes, ma'am?
Just for clarification, and I understand we're only going to be a year now in this contract, but 83 beds is the capacity, and we're at 39. Is the thought to increase that 39 to get closer to the 83, or are we going to try and keep that level lower, given it's a year and it may be changing?
We can call up a captain for that question, but I would also like to say over the next year, we'd really like to get as close to full capacity as we can and make sure to make these numbers work. To the chairman's point, if we can get there and it's something sustainable. However, with some difficulty recently having medical clearance, getting people out there, unfortunately, those numbers have lowered, but the goal is to get those numbers up to, it's actually 63 is the total number of beds available for the county, and the city of Euclid, per their agreement, has 20 beds available, totaling 83. Sure.
So Maggie Keenan, Office of Budget Management. Councilman, I just want to make clear to the committee that when we're talking about what is the daily rate, that number is based on a whole host of variables. So if we say it's $99 a day, we presuppose that the building is filled to capacity. Right now, with 30 inmates in Euclid, it's costing us well over $200 a day to house an inmate. That's a substantial difference from I think these days it's even lower in the downtown jail because we're so crowded. But so we're talking about $60 down there, $225 out in Euclid. But so if we tell you, Donna and I work the numbers, mostly Donna, but say, hey, it's going to cost absolutely, we need to bring in $100 a day per inmate. If you don't fill the facility,
it doesn't matter if you're bringing in $100 a day anymore. So we need to make assumptions on capacity. If we're not going to fill it, we need to be clear that we're not going to fill it and charge $225 a day or not do this.
Right. It's a liquid situation here.
Right.
And like I say, and going back to Mr. Miller's concerns, is what are we gonna do in the future? What we do right now is a Band-Aid as far as I can see it, and we're bleeding, and I know we're bleeding. And those numbers were, I'm not gonna say purposely withheld, just the people in charge were asleep at the wheel and telling us evidently what we wanted to hear. Now we're hearing differently, and like you say, there are so many variables involved with this, and even with the 99, say it was 99, we haven't factored in the new contracts with Metro and the food. So it's,
Right. So I'm glad you understand that. I just wanted to make sure that that is clear, that the downtown has stayed pretty static. So it depends, so there is a good way to guesstimate, and she's better, but we're both very good at doing this. So, run the numbers by us. That's would be our preference, but it's just not a fixed cost.
right,
Okay.
right. It's very difficult. And I don't want to point fingers at anybody on the 99. It was what it was. But we have to be in an area that we're comfortable with. And keep in mind the jail kitchen that's being turned into dormitories, is about 180 beds?
Less than that, I think 114,
Is it
120.
120?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's something that'll alleviate some of the problems downtown.
And to Maggie's point, sir, with the current ADP, the population that's at Euclid, for example, for March, that number rather than 99 would have been 140 to Maggie's point, and for the average ADP for January, it would have been 211 per prisoner in Euclid with these lower numbers, to the councilwoman's point.
Okay, we good? Good, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Where did I leave all of that? Okay. So I answered that one. Given that the county is over capacity at the downtown jail, why isn't the county utilizing the available beds at Euclid? That is a question that I would rather a captain or the warden or somebody answer, because I'm not able to answer that.
Good afternoon, Council. Donald Jerome, Captain of the Sheriff's Department. So the question refers to the inmate population. I think Chief Carney touched on it. When we do send prisoners to Euclid and Bedford Heights, they have to be medically cleared. So right now, we're working with the medical department. We do have staffing now at Bedford Heights and Euclid, so we're working with the medical department to get inmates, preferably the sentenced municipal inmates, cleared and sent out. So we'll be working on that to fill those beds.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Through the chair to Mr. Jerome, so you said medically cleared, so what gets them medically cleared? We don't have, are you saying that we don't have medical services out in the Euclid and Bedford?
We do have medical services. The Dr. Tallman has criteria for the prisoner that meets those criteria. I don't have those criteria on me, but there's a certain criteria that if the inmate meets that, they will be housed at Euclid or Bedford Heights.
So did we know about this criteria before we started this contract? That there would be a specific medical criteria in order to put inmates?
I think this was something that medical staff just recently started doing.
I think, ma'am, to answer your question, I think this is another hole that we didn't know about.
The assumption again was if they were healthy enough to go out to prisoner board and care, they would be healthy enough to go to the Euclid jail. That was the initial assumption. At least that was how it was explained to me by Norberto. If they can go out to jog or whatever, they could go out to Euclid.
They were low risk.
Correct.
Low risk medically, low risk.
Correct.
As far as their alleged crime and have a good attitude as far as a history being in the downtown jail.
That is correct. So that was the original assumption. Again, it didn't end up playing out that way, but that was the original assumption as it was told to me.
So who makes the calls when we see things changing like this? If we don't have enough medically clients that need to go out to the jails because they're not medically ready, who makes these determinations, who to change, to fluctuate? who's going to stay where? Who makes those decisions?
The medical director?
The medical director will make those decisions. We just go
So
by his
The medical
guideline.
director talks to you?
What happens, ma'am,
says-
is we send them a list of the sentenced prisoners who we feel can go to these facilities. They'll medically screen them. If they meet that criteria, they'll hand us the list back and we'll transport them out there. So it's ultimately the medical director and his staff will decide on what prisoners can be housed out there.
And the previous director did say that it would be only health, quote unquote, healthy prisoners, whatever that meant. So we now have to medically screen them, which we should have been doing anyhow, which we were doing, but not on a consistent basis, evidently. So.
Can they send us the criteria?
I didn't hear.
Can they send us the criteria?
If you could have Dr. Tallman.
Absolutely.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
From memory, from many of the conversations that we had about this, the HIPAA laws came into effect where we are not allowed, or if we do ask, if the answer comes back, no, I'm medically fine, I'm not taking anything, I'm not an alcoholic, I'm not a drug-addicted person, that we don't really have much to go by except for what it is they tell us. So how does that change now that we are being more aggressive about making sure that those prisoners are, in fact, medically cleared? How do we know? I mean, what has changed from the old way of, if they don't tell us, we don't really know? Do we actually put them through a medical exam? And
So I can just speak to, we do have a medical professional that does the screening for all the inmates when they do come in. So there is a metro or county nurse or medical professional that does screen each individual. So to speak to your question, I mean, I can't answer that directly on the difference. If somebody does tell you one thing and you don't have within the system accessible to you any past history or something that says different and there's not some obvious signs, unfortunately, I would assume that's what they go by. But I can pose that to medical and send that along with Councilwoman Conwell's list that she requested.
right, how do they know whether or not the truth is being said if they're privately don't want to reveal what it is that they may be compromised by?
Well, what we do know, at least in my discussions with Dr. Tallman, is when they come in, we do have access to electronic medical records. Many of them have them, don't know it, which we can check. Once they come in, I'm not sure, does the HIPAA hold true once they're in the jail? I thought once they become prisoners of the jail, that we have the ability to check their background their medical records, obviously.
So I know that they have access to Epic, and so if they're a Metro patient, for example, they do have access to those records. You know, there is still a HIPAA aspect, but I can't speak specifically.
Yeah, and you can only go on so much. I mean, if someone comes in and refuses to tell you, they refuse to tell you. But you have to get to that point. So we can have Dr. Tallman come in and tell us and take us through that. Okay, I think that'd be important.
Are federal inmates housed at any other facility operated by the county other than the Euclid Jail? I don't think so. Okay, the warden is shaking his head, no, they're not. Have the U.S. Marshals either requested or required that federal inmates be housed in a separate facility from the county inmates or other inmates?
I can speak to that. Go ahead. So following the Marshals Report Council that was released in approximately November of last year, the Marshals did ask that their inmates were moved to the Euclid facility and out of the downtown facility. And as I had spoke to earlier, right now they are only at the only at the Euclid facility, and have stated that they could not be moved back to the downtown until that same group of marshals comes in and does another assessment of the downtown jail.
Of the downtown jail or the Euclid jail?
The downtown jail. They have recently cleared the Euclid jail that their prisoners are currently at, but if they were asked to be moved back downtown, they would have to come in and do that assessment again.
Well, then I would notify them. I would, you know, reasonable people would imagine that if the downtown jail's so bad, so would Euclid and so would Bedford. And have they ever cleared the Euclid Jail?
They have
When
cleared
did
the
they do
Euclid
that?
Jail. Can you speak to that?
It was right after a report came out and they requested that, they be moved out to Euclid. They did a quick inspection. I wasn't present at it, but they gave it a once-over and decided that
Oh, they
Euclid.
gave that the once-over. That
I
must
guess
have
so.
been like the previous year once-over, that the same guy missed everything. I'm just saying. Okay. Well, why don't we get them back in here to give it the old once-over? I'm serious.
I did speak with this Euclid contract in our discussion about 1 year. Again, I did call Marshall Elliott this week, and that's when I learned some of this, so we will be following up with him,
Okay.
sir. Yeah.
That would be helpful to all of us, I think. Okay, Donna?
Okay, what is the per diem rate that the county receives for housing the federal inmates? It is $81 per inmate per day. Now, to speak on that real quick, I was again told by the previous administration, as soon as the Cleveland contract goes live, we are to start billing the feds the 99 per inmate per day. Those discussions supposedly were had. So once the Cleveland contract went live, I confirmed, hey, I'm gonna start billing them at the 99, and then I was told, no, don't, there's still more discussions that need to be had. And that's where it was left off.
And who told you no?
Ken.
Okay, all right.
Currently, we're getting the 81. That's where it stands right now. I was told that, an MOU was being worked out, and it was gonna be done by the time the Cleveland contract went live, and I never seen it, and again, I was told to hold off on that.
Okay, all right. Sure.
Who will follow up on that? Since it's on hold, Ken is gone.
Well, once they do their one-over, they can come in and talk to us, too.
And Chief Carney's already
And I
started.
think we need to let the marshal know that the one-over gentleman is coming in to talk to us. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a current agreement or MOU with the U.S. Marshals establishing the rates or other terms by which the county houses their inmates? If so, please provide a copy, which I did attach to the email that I sent yesterday. I attached the copies of the current MOU. It's actually called an IGA, which is an intergovernmental agreement. I attached that to the email yesterday. If you would like, I can send another one and make sure everybody gets a copy of it. How much does the city of Euclid pay the county each year? And is this a fixed amount? What they do is they pay 2 payments a year for capital and 2 payments a year for operations. The capital are $60,000 each payment. Those payments, I had gotten an email from Norberto and Val Proper back in 2014 saying that they had an agreement with the city of Euclid that the capital payments would not begin till 15, even though the contract went live in 14. So in 15, I billed Euclid for the capital payments, and those were for 5 years. So those go through the end of 19, $60,000 twice a year. The operational, which is $200,000 twice a year, will be a continuing, ongoing invoice that I will be sending them. That does not end at 5 years. That goes as long as the contract is in place, and that's $400,000 a year total for operations. So Euclid, that's what Euclid pays us for operations a year, $400,000 and $120,000 a year for capital, but that's for 5 years only. At least that's what the current contract said.
Okay. And just thinking, well, I'm just thinking if I'm Euclid, I have a little problem with that, in that I put all this money into a facility that might not be useful.
I was thinking the same thing, if I'm gonna still be billing them two times this year for $60,000 each time.
Yeah.
It crossed my mind also.
Maybe the administration or the sheriff or Brandy, you need to take that to the administration, because that to me sounds like it's gonna be going back to them anyhow.
And I think that's a fair discussion. If you factor in not including the capital cost, just the 20 beds that have been allotted for them, their per diem rate would have been significantly lower. However, having still $120,000 for a building that, things have changed, I think is fair. So we'll absolutely look at that and discuss that with Euclid so we can come to an agreement.
Right.
Discuss with
We
the
have
administration.
time to go over that, but it would seem to me unreasonable to keep going forward with those payments, knowing what we know right now.
Not the $400, which covers the operating costs for their beds, those 20 beds for them, but the $120,000
Right.
finalized for the capital
Right.
improvement costs.
Yeah.
Understood.
Anybody else have a thought on that? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, how much did the U.S. Marshals pay in 2017, and how much did they pay the county in 2018? What is the county's projected revenue for 2019 from the Marshals? Well, in 17, they paid us $622,323, and that's at the $81 per inmate per day, so I didn't work out the number of days. In 2018, they paid us $1,016,226. I don't even want to guesstimate or project what they will pay us in 19 because that ADP has, as you can see, dropped significantly. So I don't know what we will be getting from them in 19 with all the current situation.
Right, right.
And it says, what portion of this revenue, if any, represents payments for inmates housed at the facility other than the Euclid Jail? And like I said, I am pretty sure, and the warden just confirmed that, yeah, they're all at the Euclid Jail. They were at the county. They only went out to Euclid at the end of last year, but prior to that, they were all at the county jail.
Right.
Okay. What were the county's total operating expenditures for Euclid facility in 2018? What are our projected total operating expenditures for Euclid facility in 2019? And have there been any capital expenditures during this time frame? If so, how much? In 2018, the cost of the Euclid Jail was $2.4 million. For 2019, I would guesstimate it to be that $2.4 million, and then also factor in the cost of what this new food service vendor is going to cost us, which I can't even project what that's going to be, and then the cost of the Metro Health contract. So it would, in my opinion, be at least at minimum the 2.4 plus then factoring in those two costs that are coming down the pike. Now the cost per inmate, that's going to vary with the ADP.
Right.
So I got that in there. Am I missing anything? How much would the county save on food and medical if the county ceased operating the Euclid Jail and moved the inmates back downtown? Well, like I said, on food we wouldn't save because we still have to feed the inmates, other than we would, if we took on the 5 or so Euclid inmates, if they came down to county, then we would charge Euclid for that, but that's not much at all right there. So on food itself, we wouldn't save anything. However, the transporting of the food, and I'm not sure if it's cooked at the county or if it's taken out there and cooked. I don't know that, and if you want that answer, the warden can speak on that. But the transport of the food, one way or another, we would save on that. So that would be a savings right there. And medical, same thing. If they're taking medicine or anything like that, of course, we still have to provide it. But again, the not having to put medical staff out at Euclid, those staff could then be moved downtown, because as you know, we're trying to hire medical staff and corrections officers downtown. Right. So if you're talking 20 corrections officers that are out there, that would be 20 less we have to hire downtown. And the same for the nurses. We're trying to hire nurses. That could be a couple of nurses that could come back downtown. So the cost of the staffing is where we would save the money.
Right. It's kind of a perfect storm of not good stuff.
And that was the last of the questions. If you have any more.
Are there any other questions for the council?
Through the chair, in terms of medical staff, Donna is saying that the medical staff that's out at the Euclid would actually go back at the county, but I thought the contract with Metro Hospital, they would be hiring all their staff. So how would we accommodate that? Or would that contract just include nurses or medical staff?
So, Councilwoman, the Metro contract, which obviously still has to go in front of this board or the council here, but was signed by the executive and Metro last Friday, does include nursing staff for all facilities. It's included in that agreement. However, it's likely that nursing staff would be used downtown, or we would look at in the contract. But currently, it would be them that's filling that need. Or it would be them moving forward filling that need.
Okay, but it wouldn't necessarily be the current staff at Euclid.
Not necessarily the amount, I can't speak to that. Currently, there's one nurse 24/7, but that does fluctuate, and they do, depending on inmates and such, that number does change based on need there.
Okay.
And to elaborate on that a little bit, I haven't seen the Metro contract, so I don't know if it's a flat fee, like this much money, or is it a fee for the number of nurses that they're going to provide us? I don't know that yet. I haven't seen it. So I guess my thoughts were, if it's a fee per nurse or something like that, then that would be less nurses we would need. But if it's a flat fee regardless of how many nurses, well, then that would make it a moot point.
Okay.
Can I just speak, counsel, to, you had brought it up before, sir, about the jail administrator position.
Right.
So we did make an offer to a new jail administrator. We're currently completing background checks. So there's 2 background checks, the regular HR check, as well as the check that's done because of it's under the sheriff's office, and it's a longer background check, and they search some other ways like fingerprints and such. We do hope to receive both those back in the next few days. After that, we'd like to even make a confirmed start date within, or offer that up to the individual within the next few weeks here, and hopefully have them start as early as the 15th of this month or as late as the 1st of May, so soon.
Because that's one of the key hires going forward. So we've been anxiously anticipating that start.
We all are, and there is significant corrections experience there, but we all are, excited to have somebody on board also.
Right. Are there any more questions regarding the Euclid Jail and going from 5 to 1 year? With the understanding, we're going to work with Euclid as far as a timeline on out. Indeed, if we have to do it within this year, the more I'm hearing, sounds to me like we're going to need a little bit more of a buffer. But you will look into the payments, Euclid not paying those? That doesn't sound right.
For the 120,000, yes, and we will make those changes after working with them. And again, the goal is to get these numbers up and make it work the next year, but look to see if that's where we get. So,
Okay.
but we will absolutely work with Euclid on that.
And then we're going to look at the start, the billing date start with Cleveland for the 2%, which will affect everybody. So I think law department has to get in on that. So the administration's going to have to come back, hopefully, in a reasonable amount of time. And if not, somebody please let us know when to expect it.
Will do.
Okay, and let me know, or the president know what we're going to do with that payment from Euclid. I think in good faith going forward, that should go away.
Sure, I just want to have a couple conversations,
Sure.
but understood absolutely with
Okay.
that.
Any other concerns or questions regarding the legislation? And what we're going to do is, I would like to propose a substitute to Resolution 2019-0085. In the substitute, we will change from 2024 to 2020. And the $2 million will go to $400,000, and the not to exceed $5 goes to $1, and that's in your packet. If that's in order, I'll accept the motion to substitute Resolution 2019-0085 with the proposed substitute. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Good. And I would like to move the proposed, or the substituted 2019-0085 to the full council as substituted under second reading suspension. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna, thank you very much for, I know I've been driving you crazy as much as everybody else been driving you crazy, but I think it's been helpful for us to hear all of this. And I think what we should start looking at, not just Euclid, we're going to have to start talking about Bedford, see what those numbers are, see how that rollout's happening, stay on top of that. And when the new director comes in, I would expect that we would like to meet with him.
Absolutely.
And preferably probably meet him over at the jail and take another trip around. Okay? And that, hopefully, ma'am, that's our commitment to you. As you can see, we've gone through a lot here today, some things we knew, some things we didn't know. But I think finally we're on the right track. And sometimes the truth hurts, but we make mistakes, and it's better that we own up to them if we are making mistakes. And if it's going good, then everybody else can take credit for it, and that's fine. So thank you, Brandy. I really appreciate all you've done to the wardens and your teams. We'll be relying on you throughout the year to kind of put a focus more on the dollars and cents, and then the progress we're going to be making downtown with Metro, the food, and the hiring of the COs and the movement there that are attached to that. Okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before Chief Carney leaves, I'd like to ask a question about the downtown jail. I just want to get a better big picture understanding of what our overall strategy and direction is. And what I'd like is for you to come back as soon as possible and with information and send me a list of what the administration considers to be the 10 most pressing problems concerning the downtown jail, and what your strategy is for each of the problems, and what your timeline is as to when it can be accomplished.
Sure, no problem, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, miscellaneous business? Anyone? Thank you very much.